Evelyn Hargrove crouched in the dim flicker of a jury-rigged holoscreen, the air thick with the metallic tang of rust and recycled oxygen. The ruined municipal archive loomed around her like a gutted beast, its shelves toppled and data crystals shattered under the weight of orbital strikes from years past. She traced a finger along the edge of the ledger, a slim, unassuming tablet etched with the raw, unfiltered chronicle of humanity's fall. No Nimarchy edits, no sanitized narratives, just the truth, the betrayals, the desperate stands, the quiet extinctions. "Move it," she whispered into her comm link, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. "Team Beta, seal the outer perimeter. Alpha, you're on the vault descent." From the shadows, a cluster of figures, scavenged volunteers in patched enviro suits, hauled the reinforced crate toward the access grate. It grated open with a hydraulic whine, revealing the ladder plunging into the buried vault below. Evelyn's second, a wiry engineer named Thomas, glanced up at her, sweat beading on his brow. "This place is a tomb, Ev, if the drones sniff us out." "They won't," she said, though doubt clawed at her. The Nimarchy's documentation swarms patrolled the ruins ceaselessly, cataloging every scrap for their preservation archives. One wrong signal, and the ledger, humanity's last honest record, would be confiscated, rewritten into oblivion. She prioritized the truth over comfort, always had. But Mara's face flashed in her mind, her sister's enclave just beyond the blast zone, fragile and exposed. The team descended, the crate vanishing into the earth. Evelyn sealed the grate behind them, her hands trembling only slightly as she keyed in the final lockdown code. The vault was impervious, a relic from pre-war bunkers buried deep enough to evade scans, for now. She straightened, the weight of the decision settling like dust on her shoulders. The ledger was safe, but safety was a lie in this war. It was just borrowed time. Her comm buzzed again, this time with Captain Aaliyah Morrow's voice, clipped, edged with the exhaustion of endless patrols. "Evelyn, extraction teams inbound. We've got a window 2 hours before the next sweep." Evelyn slipped into a side alcove, away from the faint glow of emergency lights. "Negative, Aaliyah. Ledger's secured. No need for your brigade to babysit artifacts." A pause, static crackling like distant gunfire. "Artifacts? That's our history you're burying. My orders are clear. Convoy escorts the ledger out. Civilians can wait." "No." Evelyn's jaw tightened. Aaliyah had always been the pragmatist, her military mind weighing lives like ammunition counts. They'd shared a past, nights in transit camps, whispered plans before the Nimarchy's contracts choked the resistance. But that was before Aaliyah's unit became the Exodus Brigade, hardened by too many lost convoys. "Your brigades stretched thin. Divert to the enclaves, protect the living first." Aaliyah's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. "And leave the truth to rot. You're the archivist, Ev. You know what happens when we forget." "I'm not abandoning this." Evelyn leaned against the cold wall, the archive's silence pressing in. She could picture Aaliyah in her command rig, scarred hands gripping the controls of an armored transport, her convoy snaking through debris-choked streets. "The enclaves are crumbling. Families, Aaliyah, Mara's there. If you pull extraction, you're dooming them for a relic." Another beat of silence. Then, resolute. "Convoys diverting. Enclaves get the escort. Ledger stays put until we circle back." The link cut, leaving Evelyn staring at the dead screen. Aaliyah's choice was defiance, earned through blood, but it splintered their fragile alliance. Evelyn's flaw stared back at her, the unyielding grip on history, even as it cost the people she fought for. She didn't have time to dwell. The archive's external monitors flickered to life, hijacked by an incoming broadcast. The Minimarchy's seal bloomed across the display, a fractal lattice of memory webs, cold and infinite. Curator Ven's voice followed, smooth as polished alloy, devoid of inflection. "Beings of the human remnant," it intoned, the translation implant in Evelyn's skull rendering it in precise English. The archive decrees preservation sampling for designated enclaves. Sector 7B, including Outpost Delta and auxiliary holds, are selected for documentation and relocation. Compliance ensures continuity. Resistance accelerates obsolescence. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Outpost Delta, Mara's enclave. The sampling was euphemism for dissection, aliens probing human biology under the guise of archiving, culling the rest to preserve the form. Families torn apart, recorded in sterile logs, their stories twisted to fit the Minimarchy's narrative of inevitable extinction. Ven's philosophy was clinical detachment. Species were specimens. Their right to persist secondary to the ritual of cataloging their end. She slammed a fist against the console, the pain grounding her. Mara, with her quick laugh and stubborn hope, trapped in that forsaken hold. Evelyn had sent her there for safety, away from the front lines, but now it was a death sentence. The broadcast looped, drones already humming in the distance, their sensors sweeping for non-compliant signals. Evelyn's mind raced, options narrowing to sabotage or surrender. But surrender meant the ledger's truth diluted, humanity's defiance erased. A new ping on her private channel. Major Jonah Rhee, the ex-resistance liaison, now a broker in the gray zones between human desperation and alien bureaucracy. His face appeared gaunt and calculating, eyes darting as if expecting interruption. "Evelyn," he said, voice low, laced with that opportunistic silk. "Heard the edict. Your sister's in the fire, isn't she? I can help." She narrowed her eyes. Rhee had defected months ago, trading intel for pardons. His ambition a blade that cut both ways. "What do you want, Jonah? Another deal with the devil?" "A handoff." He leaned closer to his pickup, shadows playing across his uniform, still bearing faded resistance patches. "The ledger for extraction. I broker it with Ven's underlings. Safe passage for you, Mara, the Enclave. Official pardon, sheltered status in a neutral zone. No more running." Evelyn's pulse thrummed. It was tempting. Survival wrapped in compromise. Rhee's motive was clear. Power through mediation, a step up from scavenger to collaborator. But his flaw, that willingness to betray for security, made trust a gamble. And the ledger? You hand it over, they rewrite it. Our history becomes their propaganda. Not if it's a copy. Rhee's smile was thin. You keep the original buried. We trade a dummy. I get my cut. Ven gets his trophy. Everyone walks. She hesitated, the archive's chill seeping into her bones. Moral contradictions twisted inside her. Preserve the truth unvarnished or sacrifice it for the people she loved? Mara's face again, pleading in memory. Terms. Convoy meets my contact at the old transit hub, Dawn Cycle. Extraction path through the undergrid, quarantined but clear of drones. He paused, eyes sharpening. Trust me, Ev, I've kept my neck out for less. The link died, leaving her alone with the hum of the monitors. Trust Rhee. It reeked of betrayal, but the edict's clock was ticking. Drones would swarm the enclave soon. Sampling, turning to slaughter. Evelyn moved to the vault access, overriding the seal just long enough to retrieve the ledger. In the crate's false bottom, she pried open a compartment and slipped in the forged red seal, a counterfeit Minimarchy authentication chip, scavenged from a downed drone. It would pass initial scans, buying time. But if Rhee double-crossed them, she resealed it, mind made up. The extraction would thread the quarantined subterranean corridor, radiation-scarred tunnels from the first strikes, avoided by patrols but riddled with hazards. human ingenuity against the odds. They'd jury-rig shields navigate by dead reckoning. No chest-thumping heroism, just grim necessity. As she keyed the vault shut, alarms blared, proximity alerts from the perimeter, recon drones, Nemarchy scouts probing the ruins. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. The hook was here, testing Rhee's bargain before it even began. She grabbed her pack, slipping into the service tunnels, the ledger's weight, a phantom burden. Route or refuge? Push through the corridor's dangers to the handoff, risking exposure, or hole up in the archive, dooming Mara to the sampling. Gunfire echoed faintly, Aaliyah's convoy diverted but close, engaging the scouts. Evelyn pressed on, boots scraping against corroded grates. The choice burned. Legacy in the ledger or immediate survival for her sister? Truth unvarnished or the lie of safety? The corridor loomed ahead, dark and unforgiving, forcing her hand. Deeper in, the air grew heavy, laced with the acrid bite of lingering radfog. Evelyn activated her suit's filters, the hiss a small comfort amid the uncertainty. Rhee's proposal hung like a noose, salvation or snare. She'd seen his kind before, ambitious men who bent principles until they snapped, leaving others to pay the price. Yet desperation bred strange alliances. If the handoff worked, Mara could breathe free air again. Enclaves spared the sampling blades. A vibration rattled the tunnel walls, drone engines overhead sweeping the surface. Evelyn flattened against the damp concrete, breath shallow. The quarantined zone was a graveyard of failed escapes. Collapsed shafts, feral scavengers, radiation pockets that ate through shielding. But it was defensible, narrow enough for ambushes, hidden from aerial scans. Human tactics born of grit and loss. Her comm crackled, Aaliyah's voice strained over interference. Ev, scouts hit us hard. Diverting didn't buy much time. What's your play? Sticking to the plan, Evelyn replied, though doubt gnawed. Rhee's handoff, corridor route. You're betting on that snake? Aaliyah's tone carried the scar of old wounds, their shared past, fractured by choices like this. My brigade's pinned. If you need backup, focus on the enclaves. Evelyn cut the line, pushing forward. The tunnel branched, faint glow strips marking a service ladder upward. She climbed, muscles aching, emerging into a wider chamber littered with derelict machinery. Here the radiation spiked. Her suit's meter beeped warnings, but she pressed on, sealing the ledger tighter in her pack. Ven's broadcast echoed in her implants, a looped reminder of the stakes. Preservation sampling, clinical term for vivisection, bodies archived as data points in the Nemarchy's grand extinction ritual. Curator Ven didn't hate humans. He simply viewed their persistence as inefficiency, a form to be documented before erasure. No emotion, just bureaucracy of the void. Evelyn paused at a junction, scanning for traps. Rhee's contact would wait at the hub, but the recon strike complicated everything. Drones could vector in, turning the handoff into a kill box. She weighed it. Alter the route, seek refuge in a side bunker, buy time for Aaliyah's convoy to regroup, or commit to the corridor straight to Rhee, gambling on his word. A distant explosion rocked the chamber, Aaliyah's people hitting back, camaraderie under fire forging their stand. Evelyn's resolve hardened, scarred by war's brutal clarity. Refuge meant stagnation, the ledger buried forever, truth sacrificed. The route demanded action, risk, the cost of potential betrayal. She chose the path forward, slipping into the corridor's maw. The air hummed with tension, every shadow a threat. Mara's enclave teetered on the edge. The ledger's weight pulled at her like gravity, preservation or survival. The line blurred, but she wouldn't let it snap. Not yet. Hours blurred in the subterranean gloom, Evelyn's suit lights cutting feeble paths through the haze. Rad fog clung to her visor, distorting the world into ghostly shapes. She'd marked the route with chemtrails, faint markers only her team would recognize, ingenuity scraped from scraps. But the recon strike's shockwave had ripped through the convoy like a predator's claw, scattering debris and screams in its wake. Evelyn Hargrove pressed her back against the rusted bulkhead of the undercity tunnel, her breath fogging the inside of her rebreather. The air hummed with the aftertaste of plasma discharge, acrid and metallic, seeping through the seals. Above them, the surface world was a graveyard of twisted metal and flickering emergency beacons, her people's desperate bid for exodus turned into a trap. She keyed her comms, voice steady despite the tremor in her gloved hands. Status on the ledger crate, now. A crackle, then archivist Lena's voice, strained but precise. Secured in the submersible lock, Evelyn, watertight, EMP shielded, but the convoy's dead in the water, axles sheared, engines cold. Evelyn nodded to herself, the motion lost in the gloom. The ledger, that unyielding archive of human truth, raw footage and logs from the war's first brutal days, unfiltered by alien censors. It was her burden, her defiance, a digital monument to what the Minimarchy sought to erase or rewrite. But now, with the recon strike pinning them down, it felt like carrying a corpse through a minefield. Distant shouts echoed from the forward compartments, punctuated by the whine of failing hydraulics. Then, a sharper sound, Aaliyah Morrow's voice barking orders over the open channel, laced with urgency. All units fall back to secondary rally. Rafe, cover the flanks. The line cut to static, then a guttural burst of alien fire, like tearing silk. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Lieutenant Rafe Naeem, Aaliyah's right hand, the one who could jury-rig a shield generator from scrap and keep the brigade laughing through rad storms. Gone, just like that. The recon drones, sleek Minimarchy scouts, all iridescent chitin and scanning arrays, had slipped through the chaff clouds, their precision strikes immobilizing the lead transports, wheels fused to slag, hulls breached. No dramatic explosions, just efficient slaughter. Aaliyah's comms flared back to life, her tone raw, edged with something Evelyn hadn't heard from the captain in years. Fracture. Evelyn, we've got civilian haulers exposed up top, families, non-comms. They're calling for evac. We divert now. We can pull them out before the loggers swarm. Evelyn's fingers tightened on her tablet, the glow illuminating the worry lines etched deep into her face. Mara was up there somewhere, in one of those enclave pods, her little sister huddled with the other archivist's kin. The thought clawed at her, but the ledger's signal pulsed insistently in her HUD. Irreplaceable, the last uncorrupted record of humanity's fall. Abandon it, and what was left? Sanitized lies, Ven's version of history where humans begged for their chains. No, Evelyn said, the word heavy as lead. We seal the chamber, submerge it, the ledger stays hidden. Silence stretched, broken only by the distant thrum of pursuing engines. Aaliyah's response came low, controlled fury. You're choosing ink over blood. Rafe's dead because we couldn't maneuver. Those sieves are next if we don't move. Evelyn swallowed the guilt, tasting rust. Aaliyah didn't understand. No soldier could. Preservation wasn't glory. It was the quiet war against oblivion. The ledger broadcasts the truth. Without it, those families die forgotten. We save what's left by remembering right. A pause. Then Aaliyah's comms clicked off. Evelyn imagined her out there, rallying the brigade with that iron pragmatism, weighing lives like ammunition counts. They'd been close once, tangled in the early resistance days, stolen moments in bunker shadows, promises whispered against the roar of orbital barrages. But war scarred deeper than skin. Aaliyah's militarism had hardened into a blade that cut both ways while Evelyn's truth became a wall. The tunnel shook again, dust sifting from the ceiling like gray snow. Evelyn pushed forward, her boots splashing through ankle-deep effluent. The submerged chamber loomed ahead, a forgotten reservoir, its access hatch yawning like a drowned mouth. Lena and two techs wrestled the crate toward it, harness lights bobbing. "Flood protocols engaged," Lena called. "It'll sink to the thermocline, untraceable without a deep scan." "Good," Evelyn replied, helping shove the crate over the lip. Water surged up, cold and black, swallowing the container with a final, muffled gulp. She watched it vanish, a piece of her soul sinking into the depths. For Mara, for the truth. But the cost echoed in Aaliyah's silence. Her HUD pinged, incoming transmission from Major Jonah Rhee. The liaison's face materialized, holographic and smug, his uniform crisp despite the chaos. Rhee, the opportunist who'd traded resistance ideals for minimarchy favors, brokering preservation contracts that lined his pockets with exemptions. His motive was clear, power in the new order, but his flaw, that slippery ambition, made him a viper in their nest. "Evelyn," he said, voice smooth as oiled gears. "Convoy's compromised. I've negotiated an extraction window. Coordinates incoming. Get your people to grid 4719. Namarchi shuttles will pull you out." She scanned the data packet, suspicion coiling in her gut. Rhee's deals always had strings, hidden clauses that bound tighter than chains, but with drones closing, options were thin. Aaliyah's brigade first, they're exposed. Rhee's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Priorities, archivist. The ledger's the prize. Ven's orders. Transmit confirmation." Evelyn hesitated, then patched the coordinates to Aaliyah. "Rhee's got us a ride. Head to 4719. Aaliyah's response was clipped. "Copy. Moving." Minutes stretched into agony as Evelyn's team hunkered in the tunnels, ears straining for the whine of engines. Then Aaliyah's channel erupted. "False chords. This is a dead zone. Drones everywhere. Rhee, you son of—" Static swallowed her curse, replaced by the staccato of small arms fire. Evelyn's blood ran cold, stranded. Aaliyah cut off behind the advancing line, her brigade fracturing under the assault. Trust shattered like Rafe's body, Rhee's betrayal feeding them to the wolves for his own leverage. Evelyn slammed her fist against the wall, the impact jarring her bones. Jonah, with his moral contradictions, always justifying the sellout as survival for the species. But this fractured everything. "Team, double time to the secondary egress," she ordered, voice cracking. Lena shot her a look, doubt, the first real fracture in their camaraderie. They moved. Shadows in the rad fog. Ingenuity their only weapon. False trails laced with decoy signals. Chem markers to loop pursuers. But the Mnimarchy didn't hunt blind. A new hum pierced the dark. A documentation drone. One of Ven's insidious harvesters. It detached from the ceiling like a metallic spider, its arrays whirring to life. Evelyn froze as it descended. Appendages unfolding to sample the air, the walls, her own suit. Biometric harvest, DNA traces, voice prints, enclave mappings. No violence, just clinical collection, feeding the archive's vast web. The drone's projector flared, broadcasting to all linked devices. A public tag, glowing red in Evelyn's HUD. Mara's enclave, Pod 14B, huddled in the civilian transports, flagged for imminent logging. Ven's philosophy in action, preservation through cataloging, turning lives into data points before the extinction ritual. Log them, dissect them, file them away as extinct curiosities. Evelyn's vision blurred, not from fog, but rage. Mara, her sister, the one soft spot in her armored resolve, prioritizing archives over family, now dooming the girl to the logger's mercy. The flaw in her drive, that unyielding grip on truth, stared back at her. She couldn't abandon the ledger, but this? "Stall it," she hissed to Lena. but the drone was already retreating. Mission complete, its data pulsing toward the central archive. No time for grief. Alarms wailed, pursuing drones inbound, their scans piercing the gloom. Evelyn's mind raced, tactics born of desperation. The sewer archive, a labyrinth of forgotten data vaults below, rigged with jury-rigged EMP bursts and collapse charges. A choke point, defensible for minutes, maybe. "Tomas," she called over comms. Archivist Tomas Ever, her steady second, a quiet man whose motive was simple loyalty, flawed only by his blind faith in the cause, never questioning the human cost. "Take the rear team, draw them into the sewers, delay as long as you can." His response was immediate, no hesitation. "Understood. We'll buy you the window." Evelyn watched him go, his silhouette vanishing into the branching tunnels, a squad of 5 at his back. One way, she knew it, he knew it, human ingenuity against the odds. Rig the archives to blow. Funnel the drones into kill zones of wired scrap and rad traps. Earned defiance, not bravado. But the weight settled on her like the water in the chamber. Another sacrifice for the truth. The team pushed on, hearts pounding in sync with their boots. Mara tagged, Aaliyah stranded, Ree's knife in the dark. Tension coiled tighter, stakes rising with every echo. Then Thomas's radio crackled once more, his voice calm amid the setup chatter. Charges armed, drones entering the archive sector, logging final entry for the ledger backup. Evelyn patched in, listening as his recorder captured the ambient hum. The clatter of preparations. Minutes ticked by. Too many, her gut screamed. Then voices, not Thomas's team, but familiar tones filtering through the static. Ree's drawl, oily and confident. "Curator Venn, the coordinates were precise. The brigades pinned. Your loggers can harvest at will." A colder reply, Venn's alien cadence like rustling parchment. "Efficiency pleases the archive, Major. Your collaboration ensures preservation. The ledger fragment you promised, deliver it, and your exemptions expand." The line went dead. Thomas's radio fell silent, no scream, no explosion, just void. Evelyn stopped cold, the team halting behind her. Ree's meeting, captured unwittingly in the log. Betrayal confirmed, Venn's detached bureaucracy pulling strings. The truth she'd fought for now burned hotter, laced with personal venom. But Mara's tag blinked insistently, Aaliyah's last transmission a ghost in the ether. Legacy or survival? The choice clawed deeper as the pursuing hum grew louder. Evelyn's breath caught in the dim confines of the maintenance shaft, the team's shadows pressing close behind her like ghosts in the flickering emergency lights. The pursuing hum of the documentation drones echoed off the rusted bulkheads, a relentless drone that vibrated through her boots. She clutched the data slate tighter, Tomas's final log still humming in her earpiece, its words a venomous loop she couldn't shake. Ree's voice, clear as a betrayal, haggling with that alien curator, Venn's clinical tones sealing the deal like a lab specimen under glass. She waved the team forward, a silent gesture cutting through the tension. "Keep moving," she whispered, her voice barely threading the air. The shaft narrowed ahead, forcing them single file past leaking conduits that dripped acrid coolant onto her collar. Mara's tag pulsed on her wristcom, a frantic Morse code of worry from the Enclave. Aaliyah's transmission had cut out mid-sentence hours ago, something about a node strike, but the static left only echoes. They emerged into a derelict archive wing, the air thick with dust and the faint ozone tang of dormant servers. Evelyn dropped to one knee behind a toppled console, pulling the slate close. The team, 4 resistance techs, faces gaunt under hoods, fanned out to cover the approaches. No time to waste. She tapped the playback, letting Tomas's log run its course again, the audio crackling like bones underfoot. "Ree's here, curator." The ledger's fragments are scattered, but I can deliver coordinates for a price. Your preservation protocols, they'll keep my family off the sampling lists. Ven's response slithered through, emotionless as machine dice. Compliance ensures archival integrity. Betrayal of your species record voids the contract. Deliver and your lineage persists in our vaults. Proof. Undeniable. Rhee's silhouette in the log's grainy visual feed, shaking a tendril hand in agreement. Evelyn's stomach twisted. The truth she'd bled for now, a blade turned inward. The ledger couldn't expose this. Not yet. Not with Rhee's militia crawling the vents. His ambition a cancer in their ranks. If she logged it raw, Rhee would sniff it out, trace it back to Mara, her sister tucked in that fragile enclave, one wrong ripple away from the Minimarchy's sampling cruise. She exhaled sharply, fingers flying over the slate. Falsify it, just enough to bury Rhee's complicity. Swap timestamps, redact the visual, seed false metadata pointing to a drone glitch. Her flaw stared back. Truth above all, but Mara's face in her mind overrode it. The archival purist in her recoiled, but survival clawed louder. She hit commit, the slate beeping confirmation as the altered pages synced to the hidden ledger core. Lies to protect the truth. The irony burned. A burst of static cracked her earpiece. Aaliyah's voice, clipped and urgent. Evelyn, it's Morrow. Strikes green. Node targets lit. Hold position. Evelyn's pulse spiked. The captain's plan had been desperate. Hit a Minimarchy documentation node on the Enclave's perimeter. Disrupt their surveillance feeds before dawn sampling. Guerrilla tactics. Human ingenuity against the odds. Aaliyah's specialty, but risky. Too damn risky with civilians packed tight. She keyed her comm. Aaliyah, status? We're pinned in the archive wing. Rhee's drones are closing. Copy. Exodus brigades in motion. 20 minutes to breach. Aaliyah's tone carried that war-scarred edge, the one that masked the costs she'd tallied over years of convoys and lost squads. Their past tangled there. Old lovers turned comrades, trust frayed by Evelyn's archival stubbornness clashing with Aaliyah's pragmatism. This buys us breathing room, for Mara, for the ledger. The line hissed, then went live with the chaos. Evelyn patched into the brigade's TAC feed, a shaky overlay flickering on her slate. Aaliyah's unit, 30 hardened fighters, scavenged rifles, and EMP grenades, slipped through the undercity shadows toward the node tower. It loomed like a skeletal finger, Minimarchy drones orbiting its crown, recording every breath in the enclave below. Aaliyah crouched at the edge of a collapsed hab block, her breath fogging the visor of her battered helmet. The team moved like specters, boots silent on rubble. Flank left, she murmured into her mic, eyes locked on the node's base. Guards, 2 alien overseers, their exosuits humming with sensor arrays, patrolled the perimeter. Humans reduced to footnotes in their ledgers. Charges set, whispered Sergeant Hale, her second, a wiry vet with scars mapping her arms. Detonation on your mark. Aaliyah nodded, the weight of command settling like dust. Pragmatism had kept her unit alive through a dozen extractions, but it demanded tolls. This strike? It severed the node's data uplink, blinding the Minimarchy to enclave movements. Ingenious, maybe. Human hack on alien tech, rerouting power through jury-rigged conduits. But the node was volatile, its core a fusion of preservation fields and explosive failsafes. One wrong pulse and it lit the night. Mark, her voice was steel. Hale triggered the breach. Silenced rounds dropped the guards, then climbers scaled the tower's struts. Evelyn's feed caught the tension, Aaliyah's gloved hand steady on her rifle as the team planted the disruptor. Then it went wrong. A drone peeled off patrol, its scan beam lancing the dark. Alarms wailed. Abort, pull back, Aaliyah barked, but the node reacted, its core destabilizing under the EMP pulse, fields warping into a feedback surge. The explosion ripped through the feed, a bloom of white-hot plasma that swallowed the tower and the shanties clustered at its base. Screams cut the audio. Civilians caught in the blast radius, 20, maybe more, their lives vaporized in the name of disruption. Evelyn's slate shook in her grip, the tack feed fracturing into static. Mara's neighbor, Josa and Beck, an elder who'd smuggled food to the kids, gone. Just like that, Aaliyah's voice broke through the noise. Regroup, evac the wounded. Evelyn slammed her fist against the console, bile rising. Aaliyah's call, her cost. The split between them yawned wider. Evelyn's truths versus Aaliyah's bloodied hands. But the strike worked. Feeds reported the node's uplink severed, buying hours. Small defiance, earned in fire. The team jolted as bootfalls echoed from the shaft. Contact, one tech hissed. Ree's militia, his opportunistic dogs loyal to credits and contracts, burst from the vents, rifles barking. Bullets chipped the consoles, forcing Evelyn's group to scatter. She rolled behind a server rack, heart hammering, slate tucked into her vest. The ledger's hiding site, this forgotten wing, was compromised. Ree must have traced Thomas's signal. Defensive positions, she shouted, drawing her sidearm, a relic pistol, no match for their gear. The ambush hit like a storm. Militia poured in, faces she recognized from old briefings. Ree's inner circle, ambition etched in their grips. They seized crates, ripping open panels for the ledger core. Aaliyah, had she looped back? No, the feed showed her brigade withdrawing, but then a shadow moved in the fray. Aaliyah burst through a side hatch, rifle raised, covering Evelyn's flank. Ledger secure, she growled, firing a burst that dropped a militiaman. Almost, get the core, Evelyn yelled, scrambling toward the hidden vault. But Ree's voice boomed over the din, amplified from the corridor. Surrender it, Hargrove. The curator's offer stands. Truth for survival. A shot cracked, and Aaliyah staggered, blood blooming on her shoulder. She slumped against a bulkhead, rifle clattering, face paling under the grime. Evelyn, go. Take it and run. The wound was bad, arterial by the spray. Militia closed in, seizing the exposed core fragments, but Evelyn grabbed a satchel of pages, bolting for the exit with 2 techs. Aaliyah's glare burned into her back, accusation unspoken, your truths, my blood. The split deepened, a chasm of resentment. Ree's men dragged Aaliyah away, her curses fading as Evelyn vanished into the ducts. Hours blurred into a frantic evasion, the team shedding gear to lighten the load. They holed up in a derelict shuttle bay, medkits staunching minor cuts while Evelyn monitored comms. Mara's tag blinked erratically now, enclave chatter flooding in, elders gathering, whispers of a Neymarchy broadcast. It came at dusk, Curator Ven's hologram flickering to life on every scavenged screen in the enclave. The alien's form materialized, tall, segmented, eyes like polished lenses behind a veil of archival robes. Detached, bureaucratic, as if extinction were just another catalog entry. Enclave leaders, Ven intoned, voice a modulated hum that bypassed translators for direct neural chill. The Minimarchy extends preservation contracts, surrender the unedited ledger fragments, and we guarantee the safety of designated relatives. No sampling at dawn. Your forms, your histories, will be archived intact. Refusal invites ritual documentation, full species sampling for the greater record. Pressure mounted like a vice. Evelyn watched the feed on her slate, hidden in the bay's shadows. Local elders, gray-haired survivors like Josa had been, huddled in the enclave square, faces crumpling under the weight. One, Elder Tariq, a former convoy driver with a limp from old raids, slammed his fist on a crate. They'll take our kids, but the ledger. It's all we have left of who we were. Murmurs rippled, capitulation tempting, survival immediate over legacy's ghost. Rhee's influence lingered, his militia enforcing the choice. Evelyn's falsified pages burned in her satchel, but deeper. Red sealed ones, implicating Rhee fully, tied to Mara's safehouse logs. Exposed them and Rhee retaliated, dragging Mara into the open, her sister's identity woven into those seals as a courier tag. The team eyed her, silent. Aaliyah's wound echoed in her mind. The captain medevaced to a black site clinic, their bond frayed by the ambush. Legacy or survival? The theme clawed, unyielding. Evelyn slipped away to a corner, the beige chill seeping through her jacket. She pulled the red-sealed pages, their wax seals cracking under her thumb. Proof of Rhee's full betrayal, meetings, bribes, the nod to Ven that greenlit Enclave raids. But Mara's notes scrawled in the margins. Drop points, her handwriting a lifeline. Flames from a scavenged lighter danced on the paper's edge. She held it, doubt spiraling, anxiety knotting her gut, grief for the truth she'd birthed now ash. Moral concealment irreversible, prioritizing Mara over the unvarnished record, her flaw weaponized, the pages curled, blackening, the acrid smoke stinging her eyes, gone, committed. The ledger would carry a scar, her lie embedded, but Mara breathed freer for now. Dawn crept, the bay's viewports frosting over. Alarms blared across comms, Mara's Enclave feed hijacking with a new transmission. A preservation ship, emblazoned with the Minimarchy's coiled emblem, hung low in the sky, its bays yawning open. A synthetic voice boomed, clinical and final. Scheduled sampling of Enclave Delta 7 commences at first light. All forms will be documented for the archive. Compliance is preservation. Evelyn's team stirred, faces hardening. The contracts had cracked some elders, but not all. Stakes ratcheted, Ven's ritual closing in, Rhee's shadow lengthening. She keyed her calm, voice steady despite the burn in her chest. Aaliyah, if you're hearing this, we hold the line. Truth's price just got higher. The hum of the ship grew, a dirge over the horizon. The hum of the ship grew, a dirge over the horizon, vibrating through the frost-cracked earth like a promise of finality. Captain Aaliyah Morrow crouched in the shadow of a derelict cargo hauler, her breath fogging the night air, the weight of her pulse rifle a familiar anchor against her chest. The preservation ship loomed ahead, its sleek alien hull, a monolith against the stars, docking clamps extended like skeletal fingers gripping the makeshift port. Midnight had cloaked their approach, but the clamps' faint glow betrayed them. Energy fields humming to secure the vessel for the archive's grim ritual. Aaliyah glanced at her squad, 6 shadows in scavenged gear, faces smeared with camo paste that did little against the ship's sensors. "Quiet cuts only," she whispered, her voice a gravel rasp honed by too many lost nights. "We hit the clamps, sever the power feeds, buy time for the sampling to stall. No heroes. In and out." Her second, a wiry engineer named Torres, nodded, hefting the plasma torch. The others, hardened remnants of the Exodus Brigade, gripped their tools like lifelines. They weren't an army, they were survivors, piecing ingenuity from scraps, while the Minimarchy's drones patrolled the skies. She signaled, and they moved low and deliberate, skirting the perimeter fences woven with razor wire and motion traps. Aaliyah's mind ticked through the layout. Clamps at the ventral ports, shielded but vulnerable to overload. One wrong step and the ship's defenses would light them up. Her flaw gnawed at her, that pragmatic edge that let her weigh lives like ammunition counts. Evelyn's plan hinged on this delay, but Aaliyah knew the cost. The enclave below, Mara's people, huddled in bunkers waiting for extraction that might never come. They reached the first clamp, a massive alloy pylon pulsing with blue light. Torres knelt, slicing into the access panel with a vibro knife. Sparks flew silent in the vacuum of their focus. Aaliyah covered him, scanning the dark for drone sweeps. A camaraderie bound them, unspoken, shared glances that said we'd die for this, but not without a fight. Human stubbornness, not glory. The torch bit in, melting conduits. Aaliyah felt the ship's hum falter, a subtle stutter. Good, but then a patrol drone whirred overhead, its scan beam slicing the night. She fired first, a suppressed burst that shattered its core. Alarms wailed faintly from the ship. "Move!" Torres yanked the feed line free, and the clamp groaned, retracting unevenly. They hit the second, then the third, sweat mixing with the chill as the structure shuddered. Delay achieved, but as they withdrew, Aaliyah keyed her comm. "Evelyn, windows open. Your turn." Evelyn Hargrove stood at the edge of the ravine, the wind whipping her cloak as she watched the distant sparks from Aaliyah's strike. Her heart hammered not from fear, but from the weight of what she carried. A thin data slate etched with the red seal, authenticated from the old human archives. It wasn't much, a digital stamp that would flag the Nemarchy's protocols as fraudulent, inviting oversight from their own bureaucratic overlords. But it was truth unvarnished. The kind her sister Mara deserved to inherit. She'd volunteered for this, overriding Aaliyah's protests in the dim light of their forward camp. "Someone has to plant it," Evelyn had said, her voice steady despite the flaw that clawed at her, prioritizing the ledger's integrity over flesh and blood risks. Mara was down there, in the enclave, her little sister with eyes too wide for the horrors they'd seen. Evelyn's motive burned, preserve the honest record even if it meant sacrificing the immediate. The war had twisted her, made her see history as the only weapon left. Slipping down the ravine, Evelyn moved toward the ship's underbelly, where the sabotage had cracked open a service hatch. The air smelled of ozone and scorched metal. She pried the panel, her gloved hands trembling slightly as she recalled Aaliyah's warning. One slip, and Ven's drones log you as extinct cargo. Inside, the corridors hummed with alien efficiency. Sterile white walls veined with glowing conduits, documentation nodes blinking like watchful eyes. Evelyn navigated by memory of stolen schematics, hugging shadows, her boots silent on the grated floor. The red seal's code pulsed in her pocket, a beacon of defiance. She reached the central archive bay, a vast chamber lined with crystalline vaults where the Nemarchy stored their preserved samples, biometric echoes of dying species. Placing the seal here would corrupt the logs, expose the curator's manipulations. Her fingers brushed the access port, uploading the authentication sequence, almost done. But footsteps echoed, precise, unhurried. Evelyn froze as Major Jonah Rhee stepped into the bay, flanked by two Nemarchy enforcers. Their forms elongated and insectile under armored shells. Rhee's face, once a comrade's, now carried the smug polish of alliance. He'd boarded under Curator Ven's protection, his liaison badge gleaming like a betrayal. "Evelyn," he said, voice smooth as oiled gears. Predictable. Always the archivist, chasing ghosts in the data. She backed away, but the enforcers seized her arms, their grips like vice clamps. Rhee's motive was clear. Personal security in a collapsing world, brokering deals with the enemy to carve out power. His flaw, ambition that blinded him to the cost, had turned him collaborator. "I'm here on authority," he continued, flashing a hollow contract. "Ven's granted me oversight. Your little resistance play ends now." Curator Ven glided in behind him, its form a towering silhouette of segmented robes and multifaceted eyes that reflected the chamber's glow without warmth. The alien's voice emanated from a translator node, clinical and detached. "Intruder logged. Proceed with containment." Ven's philosophy underpinned it all. preservation as ritual, extinction a mere archival step. No emotion, just procedure. Evelyn struggled as they dragged her to an observation deck overlooking the docking port. Below, the enclave sprawled, makeshift habitats where humans bartered scraps under minimarchy curfew. Mara's group was there, a cluster of tents marked by faded flags. Drones descended, their scanners whirring to life, beginning the biometric logging, mapping faces, DNA, histories into the archive's maw. Mara appeared in the feed, her silhouette small and defiant, directing children to cover. Evelyn's chest tightened. "Stop this," she hissed at Ven. "The seal's already in. Your protocols." Ven tilted its head, unperturbed. "Redundancies exist. Logging commences." Ree smirked, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Moral contradiction, the collaborators' quiet rot. Then the ship lurched. Aaliyah's sabotage hit critical. A blast ripped through the docking clamps, fire blooming from the ventral ports. The explosion chained upward, shearing a support strut. Below, the port erupted in chaos. Non-combatants caught in the debris wave, screams cutting the night as structures crumpled. Dozens gone in an instant, bodies twisted amid the rubble. Evelyn's stomach dropped. She'd known the risk, but seeing it. Mara's enclave shuddered, tents collapsing, figures scrambling. Aaliyah, from her vantage in the hills, watched the fireball rise. Her squad hunkered behind rocks. The blast had worked, clamps severed, sampling delayed, but the collateral twisted her gut. Pragmatism demanded it. Buy Evelyn time, force Ven's hand. But the cost? Torres gripped her shoulder. "Captain, evac's blown." Safehouse took the edge of it. Her brigade's bolt hole, their last redoubt, caved in the shockwave, burying supplies and stragglers. Earned defiance, yes, but scarred. Inside the ship, alarms blared as the structure groaned. Evelyn twisted in the enforcer's grasp, glimpsing Ree pale against the red lights. Ven issued commands, drones redirecting to contain the breach. But Aaliyah wasn't done. From the shadows of the port's edge, she triggered the final charge, packed into a stolen Minmarchy probe, slipped aboard during the chaos. "For the ledger," she muttered, hitting the detonator. The archive core detonated in a cataclysmic pulse, white-hot energy surging through the bays. Crystalline vaults shattered, sampled data vaporizing in arcs of plasma. The deck buckled beneath Evelyn, enforcers staggering as systems fried. She wrenched free in the pandemonium, Ree shouting orders that dissolved into static. Ven recoiled, its robes singed, the alien's detachment cracking for the first time, form preserved, but control fracturing. The explosion tore downward, the ship's hull peeling back like foil. Evelyn tumbled toward an emergency shaft, the red seal's port sparking triumphantly amid the ruin. Aaliyah's sacrifice echoed in the destruction. Safehouse lost, brigade halved, but Evelyn free. She hit the lower levels hard, rolling into a subdeck that hadn't fully depressurized. Gasping, she pushed up, the air thick with acrid smoke. The blast had uncovered something, an inland vault yawning open beneath the preservation ship, its doors warped and exposed. Flickering emergency lights revealed rows of sealed matrices. The archive's species vaults, glowing orbs holding genetic echoes of the fallen. And there, on a pedestal amid the debris, a ledger, ancient, human-bound, its cover etched with stark letters, "Final Entry, Humanity." Evelyn approached, her hands shaking as she brushed away dust. The weight of it pulled at her, truth unvarnished, demanding sacrifice. Outside, the night wailed with aftermath, Mara's enclave smoldering, Aaliyah's voice crackling over a faint calm. "Evelyn, get out. We've paid enough." But the ledger's pages whispered of legacies unbroken, even as survival bled away. Evelyn's fingers trembled against the ledger's cracked spine, the red seal flaking like dried blood under her touch. Dust motes swirled in the dim glow of the archive chamber, the air thick with the acrid tang of smoldering circuits. Mara's enclave burned outside, a distant roar that clawed at her resolve, but Aaliyah's voice cut through the calm static like a knife. "Evelyn, get out! We've paid enough!" The words hung, heavy as the weight in her arms, the unvarnished truth of human screams, betrayals, and fleeting victories all etched in these pages, legacies unbroken even as survival bled away. She couldn't leave it here, not to rot in the Minimarchy's sanitized vaults. The aliens twisted history into contracts, preservation into chains. If the ledger died with them, so did the raw pulse of what humanity had endured. Evelyn straightened, her breath steadying into something sharper, more deliberate. She keyed the console beside the pedestal, its holographic interface flickering to life amid the debris. "Initiate live upload," she murmured, voice low but unyielding. "All channels, unedited testimonies, full spectrum, override safeguards." The system hummed, a reluctant beast stirring. Red warnings pulsed across the display, protocol violations, data integrity breaches, but she punched through them, fingers flying. The physical copies, those red-sealed relics she'd guarded like kin, would fuel the broadcast. She fed the first volume into the shredder slot, the machine's whine rising as it pulverized pages into digital fragments. Sacrifice for reach. Each tear of paper echoed the Enclave's collapse, but this was no elegy. It was defiance, wired straight into the Minimarchy's network. Testimonies of massacres unfiltered, strategies born of desperation, the grit of soldiers like Aaliyah who held lines with nothing but will and scavenged rounds. The upload bar crept forward, agonizingly slow. Evelyn glanced at the viewport where shadows of drones skimmed the horizon, their lights probing the ruins. Time was a noose tightening. "Mara," she whispered into her wristcom, though static answered. Her sister was out there, or what was left of her. The thought twisted like shrapnel in her gut. Truth over safety, always her creed, but now it felt like trading flesh for ink. A new alert blared. Interference detected, not from the network, from the liaison channels. Major Rhee's signature code. Evelyn froze, pulling up the feed. Rhee's face filled the small screen. Gaunt under the beacon's harsh light, his uniform torn and bloodied. He was in the outer relay station, the one bridging human enclaves to Ven's command hub. "Evelyn," he rasped, eyes darting as if expecting interruption. "This is it, blocking their reinforcements. The beacons primed, full detonation on my mark." She gripped the console edge, knuckles whitening. Rhee, the opportunist who'd sold out half the resistance for a seat at the aliens' table, now playing redeemer. His ambition had always been a blade, cutting deals that left bodies in the wake. But here he was, alone in that humming chamber, fingers hovering over the activation panel. "Why?" she asked, the words slipping out raw. He barked a laugh, short and bitter. "Legacy's a lie we tell ourselves, but blocking Ven's chain of command, that's real. Buys you time for that upload." Alarms wailed in his background, alien signatures closing in. Rhee's hand slammed down. Beacon active. The screen glitched as the signal jammed, a digital wall slamming shut against the Minimarchy's swarm. Then the flash. Overload. The relay station erupting in a bloom of fire that lit the night like a false dawn. Rhee vanished in the inferno, his sacrifice a thunderclap that severed Ven's immediate grip. No more instant reinforcements, no seamless authority. Humanity's fractured polities gained a breath, bought with one traitor's final, earned turn. Evelyn exhaled, the upload hitting 70%. The chamber shuddered, aftershocks from the blast rippling through the ground, but victory soured fast. External feeds crackled to life on the console, hijacked by Minimarchy broadcasts. Curator Ven's form materialized, tall and angular, her exoskeletal frame draped in ceremonial filaments that pulsed with archived data streams. Her voice, cool as void, addressed the remnants of human leadership. "Enclave coordinators," Ven intoned, her multifaceted eyes unblinking. "The disruption at Relay Prime constitutes a breach of custodial accord. To avert escalation, accept preservation custody. Sign the juridical claim, and your polities retain form under Namarchy oversight." Evelyn's stomach knotted. She patched into the Enclave net, voices flooding in, desperate leaders from the scattered holds, their faces haggard on split screens. One by one they yielded. "We accept," murmured the coordinator from Delta Spire, her voice cracking. "For the survivors." Another from Epsilon Drift. "Custody terms ratified. No more fighting." Political autonomy crumbled like ash. Humanity's scattered governance folding into Ven's bureaucratic web. No autonomy, no independent voice, just preserved relics, documented and controlled. The cost hit Evelyn like a gut punch. Enclaves safe, but souls bartered. Mara's group among them, perhaps, if any lived. The upload stalled at 85. "Come on," Evelyn growled, rerouting power from failing systems. The archive core groaned overhead, its massive sphere fracturing under strain. Ree's blast had weakened the foundations. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling, dust cascading. Then the collapse. A section gave way, debris raining down in a deafening cascade. Evelyn dove aside, shards slicing her arm, but the real scream came from the comm. "Aaliyah!" It was her voice, distorted but unmistakable, laced with pain. Evelyn scrambled to the console, pulling up the tactical overlay. Aaliyah was in the sublevels, fighting to hold the preservation node, the last lockdown barrier keeping the ledger's data caged. The core's fall had pinned her, rebar impaling her side, blood pooling dark on the feed. "Hold on," Evelyn urged, voice breaking. "Upload's almost—" "No time." Aaliyah's face was ashen, but her eyes burned with that tactical fire, the same that had forged the Exodus Brigade from refugees into a fighting force. She'd always been the pragmatist, justifying losses for the long game, even when it scarred them both, their shared past a tangle of trust and old wounds. Now, mortally wounded, she dragged herself toward the node's manual override, wires sparking around her. Detonating it breaks the lockdown. Your truths get out. To the adjudicators, the whole damn network. Evelyn's world narrowed to that screen, the woman she'd loved and lost to war now paying the ultimate toll. "Aaliyah, don't—" "Goes with the job." Aaliyah's hand closed on the detonator, a grim smile flickering. "Tell Mara, we made it count." The feed whited out in a surge of energy, the node erupting in a controlled blast that shattered the data barriers. Aaliyah's signal flatlined, her sacrifice ripping open the Namarchy's vault. The upload surged to completion, unedited testimonies flooding the alien networks, humanity's raw record, untwisted, reaching the distant adjudicators who judged species' fates. Evelyn slumped against the pedestal, tears carving tracks through the grime on her face. The chamber stabilized, but the silence was a wound. Aaliyah gone. Ash, enclaves in chains, and Mara, God. Mara, still out there in the concessions Ven had rung. The ledger lay open before her, its pages half shredded, the red seal mocking her from the final volume. Absolute purity, her doctrine, now a luxury drowned in blood. She tore the seal free with shaking hands, the rip echoing like a confession. No more unvarnished isolation. Survival demanded compromise. Evelyn activated the public registry terminal, its interface sterile and waiting. "Ratify custodial concessions," she said, voice steady despite the ache. "Temporary for kin safety." Her signature flowed across the digital parchment. Evelyn Hargrove, archivist, yielding to the now. Enclaves under watch, but lives preserved. Mara could breathe if she still did. The cost clawed at her. Truth diluted, history bent to fit the contracts. Her arc, once rigid as steel, fractured under the weight of love. As the registry sealed, a new transmission pierced the console, a summons from the alien tribunal, their adjudicator's chamber vast and echoing in holographic splendor. Human representative, droned the lead voice, a chorus of synthesized tones. The ledger's broadcast compels verdict. Render moral accounting on your record. Does preservation of form justify the chaos of unedited persistence? Evelyn leaned into the mic, the chamber's ruins framing her like a battlefield confessional. Her final entry uploaded in real time, words spilling unfiltered one last time. I chose lives over the unedited truth, sacrificed purity for the kin I couldn't lose. The archive holds the rest. Judge us by it. Future generations will weigh the cost. The transmission cut, leaving her in the dim hum of aftermath. Outside, the night settled, wails fading to embers. Truth's legacy lingered, scarred but enduring, as the stars watched indifferently.